because I was on Facebook, yesterday, actual Father's Day. And I was looking at all the happy Father's Day, and I was putting it out there too, like to my dad who's passed away, putting up a couple of his military pictures, and that's what everybody was doing. But then I noticed there was a particular woman, one of my Facebook friends, that posted Happy Father's Day to you mothers. And we got the insinuation that there are many mothers out there that are actually taking on the role of father and mother. And she was really like dissing men. So I know she had gotten burned. She has some kind of negative experience with her baby daddy, right? But we want to look into that very carefully because we want to be real about this. Because I was doing a lot of thinking about this, especially last night, especially when I was reading that woman's comment. And what I was thinking, how oftentimes, and it's unfortunate, that two irresponsible people end up getting pregnant or having a baby, having a child, two young people often. And that situation is rampant, like throughout our city. But if you really consider it, if you really begin to dissect it and not take it so personally, you begin to recognize that there are two culprits here. And maybe it's not intentional. What you have two individuals that are very irresponsible. And recognizing that a baby can be created and still going about having unprotected sex. And that's when the baby, so you got two irresponsible people. And so the man is no more irresponsible than the girl, than the woman, or the boy is no more irresponsible than the girl, and the girl is no more irresponsible or no less irresponsible than the boy. They're both doing something tremendously irresponsible because there's ways to prevent a child from being born, but being irresponsible, and a child's born. So you have two irresponsible people having a child out of wedlock like that. But it seems that the woman or the girl always is the one that ends up trying to be more responsible. And I'm going to throw something out there just that we can think about, because I was considering that, and I'm thinking, what if, okay, it's established, it's already established, and I think you agree that the two individuals, the boy and the girl, these two young people are being irresponsible, having unprotected, they shouldn't even really be having sex at that age, but if they are, they should be having protected sex. A baby pops up. That's irresponsibility on both of their parts, right? So I was thinking, and it was almost kind of funny, a funny thought, that what if it's the man, what if it's the male that gets pregnant and has to carry this child, for like 9 months and all? Well, what role do you think that female would play? Because the reality is you have two irresponsible people here doing something that's irresponsible, and the one that isn't pregnant is the one that takes off. And really, that taking off is simply another characteristic of the irresponsibility that created the child in the first place. So I'm merely suggesting that possibly, if it was the male that had to carry that baby, the female would be doing the same thing, because she's irresponsible as well. Both parties are irresponsible. One just has to carry this baby. Both irresponsible. The irresponsible one that doesn't have to carry the baby is just gone, okay? Doing his own thing. Not mature, not grown. Who hasn't been there? Males. Most males at a young age are not ready to be dads, okay? And that's just the reality of the thing. The fact is, the woman, the girl has the baby, she carries the child, and so the young man just isn't there. And that's terrible, but that's a reality. But if the man was carrying the baby, the girl wouldn't be there either. Because they're both irresponsible. One just got stuck with the baby, okay? And that's the reality. But still, now we have a child. So it doesn't matter who is irresponsible. It doesn't matter what the situation is. We have this child here. What are we going to do? And so the responsible one has to be the one that's carrying the child. Has to be responsible enough to recognize you're carrying this child. You can't be smoking cigarettes. You're carrying this child. You can't be drinking beer. You're carrying this child. You got to be eating right. You got to be taking care of yourself because the health of this child is dependent on the environment that you have created for that child, for that fetus, for that baby, whatever you want to call it. And so the woman, the female, the girl has some quick growing up to do, because although she was irresponsible in creating this child, she's the one responsible for carrying it and protecting it for 9 months, and then being there with it once it's born. So she has some quick growing up to do, and that's very difficult, because a lot of the maturity, a lot of the growing up that's necessary to even take care of a child properly is gleaned from the parents. Okay, you learn to be a parent from your parents. But if you come from a family of a similar situation, if you are born out of wedlock, born into a similar situation, it's very unlikely you're going to have the skills in order to sort of break that curse and sort of change the direction, that you're bringing your baby into this world. So but you have to. And so I'm saying, sometimes we just have to think about a thing. Sometimes we just have to consider life just can't go on as it was. Fun time is over. I mean, this is what happens. We have prisons full of people that made mistakes when they were young, and that's just that. Somebody died, so life in prison. So you have young people that make a decision, an irresponsible choice, and a child is born. A child's life and well-being should trump the fun of the parents at that point. But unfortunately, it doesn't. Because a parent, they don't know. They have no idea. There's nothing to base that sense on. And so I'm recognizing, I'm applauding that woman that made that Facebook post, because I am recognizing that yes, the mothers are often the mothers and fathers as well. They have to play both roles. That's for real. And there's no real reason being mad at the father, because the reality, if you got an irresponsible father, you got somebody that really doesn't need to be in the process of raising this child anyway. I mean, you see a lot of children end up getting babies, and young toddlers end up being abused and harmed physically. Now, not to mention emotionally, because the individual, the father, was just not ready, just should not be a father. So sometimes, and I have to think, that things do work out for particular reasons. And if the father of that child isn't in the child's life, maybe it's not such a bad thing. Do you really want that influence in that baby's life? I don't think so. Best thing that ever happened to you might be that he ain't there, So, and don't be ragging on that father in front of that child, because that child is going to grow up with an unhealthy picture of what a father is supposed to be. So now you curse this child to becoming a man, possibly if he's a boy, not knowing what a man is supposed to be in the life of a child. And if you're ragging on the daddy around this child or to the child's going to grow up kind of confused on its role, what it's supposed to be. Man, the mothers have a very tough time. I guess this is a Father's Day program, but this is more a message to the mothers, because you have that primary responsibility. Like it or not, you're there. Hi, Mom. Right? And so I just suggest making wiser choices. It may have been irresponsible for this child to come into the world, but you don't have to keep being irresponsible. And be more selective. Be more selective about who you date. And what does date mean, You really got to go there? I mean, because we have a lot of times we have more kids with different daddies, coming up in the same household. I mean, so the first situation hasn't yet been resolved, and now another situation is created, and now another situation is created. This is all I'm saying is, it's not just the man that's irresponsible. Oftentimes, it's this female. She is just the one that has to carry this child. But the acts, what's being done, are not quite responsible, and we really need to begin to look at that, because what we're doing is we're making ourselves examples to the babies coming up in our households, and that's all they know. And more often than not, they follow that same path of the families that they came up in, and they end up having their own babies out of wedlock, and then their babies have their babies out of wedlock, and it's just like a never-ending cycle. And I found something that I want to share with you on the internet, on Facebook. Anybody that's on Facebook, I'm sure, has seen this. It just broke me up, okay? It says, to all the girls who are in a hurry to have a boyfriend or get married, a piece of biblical advice. Ruth patiently waited for her mate, Boaz. I'm a minister, that's true. Ruth waited for her mate, Boaz. While you are waiting on your Boaz, don't settle for any of his relatives. Broke-as, po-as, lying-as, cheating-as, dumb-as, drunk-as, cheap-as, locked up as, good for nothing as, lazy as, and especially his third cousin, beating your ass. wait on your Boaz and make sure that he respects your ass. I hope I can get away with saying that on here, man, but this was so perfect. I mean, I have a daughter, okay? And see, and so it's very important to me. I mean, she's only 7 years old, but, I'm considering now. And trying to, and I'm old, I'm older to have a child, I'll be 54 this year, but that's good. Because I've read the books and I've listened to the seminars, and I know the things that a dad is supposed to do for a girl. I know the relationship that a dad is supposed to do for a girl. And I've been hearing that and understanding that, never really considering the fact that I was going to be that one day. But I know how important the affirmations are. I know how important the time is spent there. And a lot of this is from the mistakes I had made in previous life as a dad. Not being there at all, and then not being there as much as I should. But now, having learned from those situations, being there all the time, okay, as much as I can, and more. At night, the bed at night, giving stories, Bible stories and regular stories, and then affirming, and then being there to pray at night with her and suggest some prayers, and then whispering affirmations in her ear every night as she's falling asleep. I mean, I recognize these things, I understand these things, how important it is. And so even this thing, as funny as it was, about all these folks, as far as you girls are concerned, this is very important. You need to be more selective. And I know there's a lot of black men that are locked up. I know there's a lot of ladies that like that kind of, I guess, person or environment or whatever. But when you really break it down and think about it, it's a negative illusion. And it's not good. And I'm just suggesting that we just need to begin to check ourselves and ask ourselves, is this really, what we want for our child? I know even my life. And some of you know me from years ago. I'm a minister now, and I have been for like the past 20-some years. But some of y'all knew me before. The partying, the clubs, the drinking, the immorality, just doing things that I shouldn't be. I was just out there. I guess a regular guy and all. And that was fine. That was what I was doing. That was my thing. And it was great. This was me. But then I had a son. And I'm like, man, I don't want that for him. As far as college, as you know, he just, as I mentioned in just about every program, he just graduated from UC a couple of weeks ago. And he's on his way to a wonderful life, something I never could have done. And I don't, the life that I lived, I guess it suited me because the environment I came up with and the personality that I had, I could have been a lot more. I could have been a contender, But whatever my life was, I wanted more for my son, okay? And I think that's what we have to begin to realize, that we need to insist on more for our children, and not allow them to be saddled down with the life that we came up in, the lifestyle and the things that we're doing. It may be okay for us, but each generation is supposed to surpass the previous generation. Each generation is supposed to be greater than the next generation. My son is supposed to be greater than me. His son is supposed to be greater than him. His son is greater than him. This is what we need to be about as far as in the lives of our children. Now, if you want to get real serious now, because I guess we've been speaking kind of tongue-in-cheek in this program, we got to recognize the devastation that slavery did on the African-American family, okay? When you look at foreigners that come to this nation, like you look at some of the people from the Arab nations or Middle East or people from India or whatever, or Korea, with the hair gold and the hair places and the BP gas stations or whatever, all these folks, they have a vision in mind. Their vision isn't just to come to America to get rich. Their vision is to come to America so in like 2 generations, their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren will be rich in America, okay? That's what they recognize. They're not coming here themselves. They're trying to build something for the generations that will be here after they're dead. See, we don't see it like that. And I think it has a lot to do with that slavery thing. We were in a day-to-day survival. We would have kids. They'd take the kids, sell them, send them to another plantation and all. It was never about preparing for your children. But we need to recognize those days are gone. But there are the remnants of those days in the back of our minds, and that's why we live the way we do. I mean, it wasn't about getting married. It was about wherever you mate with, whatever plantation you were on. You might be sent to that plantation and mate with these, this plantation and mate with those. It wasn't about being a family unit and raising your kids. It was just simply about having sex. And that's where we're at today. Now, I believe that through certain eras, in the evolution of black folks in America, we have been more moral in a sense, or at least tried to be, especially during the civil rights era. But something happened, and we regressed. Now all is not lost, because we mentioned in a couple programs ago that although a lot of our neighborhoods are really jacked up, making the wrong decisions, doing terrible things, just falling off, the map of legitimacy, that there are many young black people that are getting educated, that are getting good jobs, that are making good money, that are making headway in this nation. Look, we have a black president of the United States of America. It's happening. But what I'm suggesting is there are just too many of us that are falling between the cracks. Too many of us, some of you that are watching right now, some of your family members and friends that you know of. We need to change. We need to get it together. We need to get a plan. We need not be satisfied with the tidbits that were being handed by the government, just keeping us hanging on alive. That's sort of like the plantation. Don't give the slave enough to actually be full, but just give it enough to keep it alive. And make sure it stays just in this area. Don't let it come over here. And we're seeing that even with, we don't want the RTA going to another little community. We're seeing that in real time, okay? We don't mind keeping them alive. We don't mind feeding them, giving them some money, giving them some free phones or whatever. But keep them contained in their little compound, their little area. We need to break out of this thing. And again, I do commend the young mothers that are functioning in the role of mother and father. But when you do that, you have to realize the tremendous responsibility you have. It's just not about the fact that they're just there. It's about the reality that you're supposed to be doing something to get them on a higher plane than the reality that they see day to day in their community. One of my favorite stories is about Ben Carson. Ben Carson is like one of the greatest neurosurgeons, brain surgeons, in this nation. And he's an African American. And he was raised by a single mother, poor, illiterate. She couldn't even read. But she knew that she didn't want her son to follow in her footsteps, to remain in this community, in her community, and just be another statistic. She made that boy every day come home and read to her every day. She couldn't even tell if he was really reading the right words because she couldn't read. But she did the best she could to make sure that he got out of that community, and he did. He got a great education. He's very wealthy, and he's a Republican. So why is he a Republican? Because, and I'm not a Republican. I don't think I'm anything really. I just think we just needed a black man in office, and if he had been a Republican, if Obama had been a Republican, I probably would have voted for him too. But the idea about handouts, I mean, I understand that. I mean, if everybody acted right, if there was no racism, and there's no prejudice, and people did what they were supposed to do in the housing and in job and in hiring and everything. If everybody just acted, the police, if everybody just acted right, I could be a Republican, I guess. I mean, I understand that. As far as the handouts, people don't really need handouts that are able. But I think the problem with in the politics today is that certain folks are failing to realize why people are the way they are, and people aren't making the mistakes that they're making continuously because they want to. It's just that they don't have the ability to recognize there is another way. Okay, for real. I mean, let me give you a little. I mean, this is kind of a casual program today. I guess I could take, it is Father's Day, or I guess it isn't now, but for me it is, just the day after. But a couple of years ago I was in a neighborhood, and there was a lot of snow outside. And there was a particular driveway of a couple, and they didn't have much money, and it had snow on it and everything. And I saw this guy, this young man, and when I say young man, he was probably about 30 years old. He had a shovel over his shoulder, and he was going door to door, knocking on doors, asking if he could shovel their driveway for just a few bucks. And so I called him over. I said, "Hey, you see that driveway over there?" I said, "Well, how much you charge?" He said, "I think he said like $10 or something like that." I said, "Well, here, I'm going to give you this $10, and I want you to go ahead and just shovel it, as soon as you get a chance today sometime." He said, "Okay, thanks." I gave him that $10, came back later on that evening, and guess what? He hadn't shoveled it. Now, what's up with that? Now, let me ask you a question. What are you thinking right now? Are you thinking, "Man, he got over it"? Or are you thinking, "Man, he was very dishonest"? And that right there, your response will tell you what kind of person you are. Okay? Because what I'm suggesting today is most of us on this planet believe in karma. Or what goes around comes around, or you reap what you sow, or whatever. And when you do things that are not quite right, it comes back on you. And what I'm suggesting today is this is the problem, I think, that we have in the African American community, is that too often we do things that we shouldn't be doing, and it's almost like we're sabotaging our own ability to get out of the mess that we're in because we keep doing things that we're not supposed to be doing. Now this guy, what I was thinking, when I gave him that $10, I knew he could have just walked away and not shoveled that snow. But I was thinking, I was giving him an opportunity to show that he had some integrity, even to prove to himself that he had some integrity. Because a lot of times the reason we can't step out of the mess that we're in is because of how we view ourselves. "Oh, I am a criminal. I am stupid. I am dumb. I am a failure. I am all these negative things. I am dishonest." All these things I'm always trying to get over as soon as I can see. All this kind of stuff. How we see ourselves, we're judged and we're limited by how we view ourselves. There's an old saying, as a man thinks in his heart of himself, that is what he is. And so we have so much potential to be so much more, but we limit ourselves by how we perceive ourselves and the decisions that we make based on our self-perception. And so that guy really had an opportunity to prove to himself a positive, but he just reinforced the negative. And I almost promise you now, if he continued down that path, his life is probably on the same level or worse than it was that day I gave him that $10. And that $10 might have simply been his ticket out of his mess. You know what I'm saying? So just consider that. And I'm just going on and on. This is Father's Day. This is the right of a father, just to talk, whatever he wants to talk about. This is what old folks do. Children rolling their eyes and all. But I'm just saying, in our community today, we can't just blame stuff on the irresponsible man. Because the reality, it was two irresponsible people that created that child. And the reality, just him not being there, just is another characteristic of responsibility that enabled him to participate in the process that brought that child into the world. And if he's that irresponsible, and if he's just not got it together like that, maybe it's a good thing he's not the influence in that child's life. But don't let that go to waste. If that negative influence of that child's father isn't in that child's life, you be a positive influence. Don't just create another child and create another one, because really, you're really no better than the irresponsible father. You're just irresponsible in a different way. So now what has this child got as far as role models for a mom and a dad? Two irresponsible parents, and ends up completing that same cycle for real. We need to really be aware of that. I really didn't want this to be a negative message. It was supposed to be kind of funny, but when you look at the situation of our children getting killed, our children killing, our children walking down the street with their behinds sticking out of their pants. Really, if you think about it, they're lost. They're embracing things that are ridiculous. They're embracing lifestyles that are self-destructive. They're making choices that are condemning them to be on a lower level all of their life. And oftentimes, the only way out is jail or the grave. It's a mess. It's a mess. And the reason I'm suggesting that we really, really consider this right now, because it might be too late for a lot of the teenagers and up. But there are younger kids that are looking and that are watching, just looking for a role model, looking for a direction. And that's what they got. And it's just a terrible place. It's a terrible situation where we're at. And these young people don't realize it. But when you tack on 20 years, where are they going to be in 20 years? For real, think about it. So ask yourself that question. There's certain folks that are successful, and I really haven't been one of those type people. I think I've just been very, very, very extremely blessed, fortunate. But there are people out there that say you need to have a plan. That you need to have a short-term plan, which is maybe a 6-month plan and a year plan. You need to have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And then as you're going along the process, say after the one, then you begin to look at your 5-year plan, and maybe because where you're at, you readjust your 5-year plan. And so you're constantly readjusting your plans, but you're going forth with a plan, a direction, a game plan, And so what I'm suggesting is that's what I'm suggesting everybody to. If you're watching this and you don't have a plan for your life, you need to make a short-term plan. What do you plan on doing in 5 months? What do you plan on doing in a year and 5 years? As some of you know, just last week I just got my associate degree after 1 million years. And I didn't need it for a job. I just thought it was just something I just never did, and I just should have done it. But I had to make a plan. I had to go in there and go into the counselor's office at the Sinclair College and meet with one of their advisors, and she actually gave me this list and circled all the classes I needed to take for this associate degree. I had a lot of classes over the years, but for this particular direction, I wanted to be in a plan that was a parallel program to Wright State, so I could take all of my associate degree and start at Wright State as a junior. So she got this plan out for me and circled everything that I needed to take. And that's what I did. 3.5 years ago, I just started taking each course that this lady circled on that piece of paper for me. I still have that old piece of paper. You have to have a plan. It's like a roadmap to life. If you don't have that plan, you're probably not going to make it. At the risk of sounding corny, you've heard that old saying, those who fail to plan to fail. Man, I can see that. You need a plan. You get a plan, get a game plan, figure out what you want to be, what you want to do. I don't care where you are right now. I'm telling you, I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you have no job. I don't care if you got an alcohol issue or drug issues or whatever. Start right to start where you're at. To get started, to get to where you want to go. Just start right where you're at. I'm telling you, now I'll share this with you. My wife tells me I talk too much. I tell too much of my business. You might tend to agree, right? But let me tell you what. For the last 2 years, this degree that I just got. For the last 2 years, I just needed one class to take. It was college algebra. The problem is, math has always been my weak spot. I mean, I came from the 70s. We were all partying. Who cared about math? All I knew was as I graduated, I was going right in the Air Force, so I didn't even care. I mean, even fractions and things as simple as fractions, intimidated me. But nobody ever knew. I just grew up, here, worked here, the military, NCR. I just did my, and the post office, all these things. Nobody knew that I was so intimidated by mathematics, so intimidated by fractions, okay? I just never told anybody. And so now I'm looking at this list that this woman gives me, this game plan of all these things I got to take. And I saw that college algebra down there, and I just took everything else on that list. All the way to the point where there was nothing left to take but that college algebra. And I was like horrified. And so there's a test that you could take, a placement test to see where you have to go, as far as if you could go right into the class or you have to take preparatory classes, developmental classes to get you ready for that algebra class. You know what I did? I took the first mathematics developmental class at Sinclair. It was like 1 + 1 is 2, and it was almost ridiculous, and I almost quit that first day. But in my mind, I decided I didn't know where I had messed up all along my life. I graduated high school in 1976. And so I didn't know what part of math. I knew what 1 + 1. I knew math, basic math, division, multiplication, all that stuff and everything. But I didn't know where I had actually messed up. I knew the fractions were the issue, but I decided what I was going to do was I was going to take the very first developmental class and just take them all the way up to college algebra. And that's what I did. Took that developmental math class, this one. Finally, I got to Introduction to Algebra. Then I took elementary algebra. Then I took an introduction to algebra. No, then I took intermediate algebra. And then I took this college algebra. And so what I'm saying is, I had that plan. Now, I may not have had to taken all those courses, but I didn't know where I had messed up, and I knew that I was never going to do this again in my life. And so I was just going to cover everything and make sure I got it all covered. And that's what I did. And just this last week, I was awarded my associate degree. But 2 years, from the spring of 2010 until now, I've just been taking math courses. That was my game plan. And what I'm telling you, it paid off. And guess what? Man, that algebra class was such a struggle. My game plan was to take everything but algebra and take that last. And I'll tell you what, if I had stepped out of my game plan and had tried to take these mathematics courses first, I would have never made it. I would have gotten discouraged. I would have given up. But since that algebra was the last one and everything else was done, it gave me that added motivation. So I had a game plan. I implemented it, and I stuck to it. And that's a personal thing. I'm sharing that with you today to tell you, you just need to figure out for yourself. I mean, you can't use my game plan. You probably are fine with fractions. Your issue might be in another area. So whatever it is, just figure it out. There is a way. But the bottom line is, you need to find a way out. You need to find a way out. There is a way out for you personally. Now, it may not be an easy way out, but there's a way out. Hey, I've talked too much. I hope I said something that might have not just pissed you off, you know. But the reality is, we've all done things that are messed up. And then the one thing about us, I think it's a human trait, is we don't mind identifying ills in other people's lives where they've messed up and they've made mistakes. But the moment somebody zeroes in on us, we get kind of ticked off. Don't get mad. Just say, well, you know, you're right. Listen to the comedians sometimes. You know how they're ragging on folks. Sometimes they're ragging on us too. A lot of their jokes are for real. We are in a very interesting, unique situation, especially as African Americans, that much of it we've created for ourselves because of issues that we have, emotional issues, psychological issues. We just need to address them. Okay? But anyway, I think I've been here long enough, and I hope you're okay. You know, happy belated Father's Day to all you fathers out there. And happy belated Father's Day to all you mothers who are actually functioning in the role of fathers as well. Keep it up. Try to do a better job, and you'll get there. But anyway, without further ado, I want to bid you farewell. And I do want to thank you once again for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again. Take care.